questionable for that first game Friday.
Okay, for sure questionable for the first game against Robert Morris, but dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah, that was the phrase that jumped out at me when I saw our social media send that out last night, and I watched the video. Not that he's questionable against Robert Morris. Like, I think even if you thought he could go against Robert Morris, you might rest him. Like
much like Cooper Flagg.
Yeah. But to hear him say we dodged a bullet tells you there has been a big sigh of relief around that basketball program based on what information they've gotten from both doctor visits, or the doctor visit.
Just reading between the lines, you take that Brownie as at one point in their head they thought it could have been season ending.
Yeah, I mean, I that's the way I listen to that and hear it, Lance, is that at one point Nate Oates thought, oh, crap, this could be really, really bad. We get back home, we go to the doctor says, no, not as bad as you think, and we breathe a sigh of relief. I mean, that's what I hear Nate Oates say.
But could have been really bad.
Yeah.
And, to me, Grant Nelson, arguably his best game was the regular season finale against Auburn on the road. That's the Grant Nelson you need to be able to make another Final Four run.
Yeah, you got him some in the tournament last year. He continues to amaze me, some of the dunks he makes. Like, he is the most unassuming-looking guy. He's got permanent bedhead, got that mustache, his pale skin, just out there lanky, just hanging out. I mean, man, he makes some thunder dunks.
Yeah, I mean, if he was an animal, he'd be a lemur.
Yeah, and makes some thunder dunks.
A lemur. I like that.
Why a lemur?
I mean, pull a picture of Grant Nelson. He looks like a lemur with a mustache.
I love lemurs.
You got to pull a picture of the lemur. I know what Grant Nelson looks like.
When my daughter was growing up, there was a show with a lemur in it.
You're probably thinking about Madagascar.
Huh?
Zabumafu.
That's what it was.
I was thinking about Madagascar.
No, yeah, you're right. The one that jumped around.
Yeah.
And it was like hanging on the dude's shoulder and stuff.
Yeah. I hated it, but she loved it.
Yeah, it was bad. Madagascar pretty good, but that show was bad.
Yeah, I've never even heard of the other show.
Good call on the lemur. That is Grant Nelson.
That is pretty funny, Lance.
Yeah.
When you have little kids,
not that one. Go back.
That's very surprised Grant Nelson.
Yeah, that one right there. That's Grant Nelson right there. Yeah, because Grant intentionally does his hair that way. By the way, as he's coming back into the action, he'll ruffle it up a little bit.
Well, he's got, the dark circles, too. That's one of the things.
Another day, another episode of the Pennant Grace. My name is Emily Grace McCorder. This is Josh Ush-Sisk, and we are talking all things Atlanta Braves. Before we get to Roback, we're in a fantasy baseball league, guys. And there's 8 of us.
Yes.
My team name is the Eggs, E-G, Eggs.
Mayberry Bears.
Big fan.
That's me.
Yes. And we have no idea what we're doing.
No, we're learning as we go. It's a lot like hosting a show. Sometimes you just learn on the job. You learn as you go, and it all works out.
Right. So the Dodgers and the Cubs played early this morning, if you guys were up for that. And I had some players in the mix. And I realized today as I went to check my lineup, and it's a lineup, it's not like fantasy football. You have to check it every single day. You have to set your lineup every single day.
Yeah.
You can pay Yahoo Sports or whoever your provider is for like the week long, and it'll set your lineup for all active players. And I realized I'm winning against Reed Taylor, but I don't know how, and I don't know what statistics are going towards that winning total right now.
I am losing against Jimmy Dunaway. So that's all right.
It is. And so if you have any fantasy baseball tips, this is my first time playing. This is your first time. I think it's a lot of in our league right now. Not a lot of us are very familiar with it, but we're having a good time. But give us some tips, some tricks, because when you open the app, it's very overwhelming.
It is. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of players that you have on the roster that you start. And like you said, it's a lot to keep up with. This guy playing well. This guy's not playing as well. Mm-hmm. This guy doesn't do as well against this pitcher, and then all the injury stuff,
right.
And then this guy's going to sit today and things like that. So it's a lot.
Speaking of injuries, real quick, and that Dodgers-Cubs game, Freddie Freeman, he was who was in my starting lineup. He actually did, and I can't figure this out if it was either in batting practice injury, but he's injured, ribs. So keep that in mind. I'm not exactly sure what the update is on that, but that happened early this morning. They're playing in Japan for that. But someone who is coming off of the injury bug.
Yes.
Someone I think you know that I'm referring to.
I do.
Who would that be, Ush?
That would be Spencer Strider. And after almost a full year,
full calendar year,
we saw Spencer Strider on the mound for the Atlanta Braves yesterday. And partner, it went as well as it possibly could go.
I mean, honestly, you really can't ask for more, and I think it exceeded everyone's expectations. Spencer Strider was absolutely lights out, and I want to share with you, did you see his quotes following this game?
I did.
Okay, so I'm going to share with our audience here. He said, after the first inning, it was a rare emotional moment for me on the field where I was happy instead of just angry with the world. It's a good feeling.
This is the guy famous for saying, I hate all of my opponents equally. He's not the cold mechanical heart of Ryan Brown, but he's kind of in that mold.
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal for him to show a little vulnerability there. To admit that, hey, this was a big moment for me. They were thinking, maybe get him into the second inning because they had a pretty set pitch count. Ends up going into the third inning,
right.
8 up, 8 down. I mean, he's fantastic.
So he wanted to get to 30 pitches, and he got there. He exceeded that. Now, one thing a lot of people may be asking is, okay, well, this should be good because maybe the Braves will get him back a little sooner than expected. And they were quick to say, no, we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. And they're still looking at second half of April to return. So there's 10 days until opening day, counting down. It's going to be exciting, but it'll be second half of April until we see Spencer Strider again.
We'll see.
I
think there's still a chance you could see him
Really?
Earlier in April.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, we're going to hold us to that because we like to do that on this show.
Please do.
And I will be curious, but I do like the approach they're taking. If they don't want to get ahead of themselves, they don't want to be too aggressive. Yes, he had an incredible day one, outing, but you never know with these injuries and how long it might take him to acclimate again to game speed.
E.G., who was the National League Cy Young winner last year?
Chris Sale.
Chris Sale. Here's a quote from Chris Sale.
Oh, let's hear it.
Let's not forget, speaking of Spencer Strider, let's not forget he's still the best pitcher on this team. Quote from Chris Sale. I love that. It's big time.
That is. Yeah. I love
That's
the energy.
That's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Saw a really cool little feature with Sale not that long ago. Chris Sale talking to friend of the show, Jake Peavy.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
friend of the show.
It was a lot about Greg Maddux. And Sale was saying, you learned from Maddux from the time that they were on the Padres together. I learned from you, and just how those things are passed on down like that through these great Hall of Fame, pitchers.
It's a really cool perspective. I do want to share with people Jake Peavy because now that you bring him up, I feel like this season we obviously haven't been able to talk about him. And I want to say, when did we meet him? That was about a year.
That was coming up on a year ago.
Yeah. But basically, we were at the Regions Golf Tournament here in Birmingham, and he was one of the celebrity guests.
One of many.
We met a few people that day. Everyone was super kind. But obviously, for us as baseball fans, that's someone that we're going to seek out slightly. And when we tell you guys, he took the utmost time with us to share with us stories, just everything about his time in the major leagues and what he does now with, the MLB league office. And I don't know if he's still in this role, but at the time he was like a liaison between Rob Manfred and different teams. And he talked about the different cultures in the clubhouses. And it was so cool for us to hear about that. He did let us hold his World Series rings too.
Yeah, without us even asking.
Yeah.
And we talked to a lot of nice people that day. Friend of the show, Roman Harper. Country music superstar, Riley Green. Everyone was great, but Jake was the best of all of them and was very encouraging as this was at the launch of the Pennant Grace.
It was. And now look at us.
Look at us.
And that brings me to my next point. If you want to be dressed in style, we care about style on this show. I care about fashion, style, all the above. Who do you need to go to, Ush?
You need to go to roback.com, and on your first order, however big you're going to make that order, and I suggest you make it big,
Agreed.
big, use code PG20. It's going to save you 20% on the entire order, 20% off. You just came back from the Players' Championship,
I
PPC
did.
Sawgrass, guaranteed, without discussing this beforehand, the trust we have in each other, guaranteed my partner saw plenty of Roback because their gear for the golf course is second to none.
It's incredible. It was absolutely everywhere. I wanted to tell everyone, hey, PG20 gets you 20% at checkout, but it's growing. If you guys, look around, it's the cute dog logo, and they have incredible performance gear. They have incredible athleisure. They have really everything in between, workwear.
Yep.
You can really do it all at Roback. And what I love about them too is nowadays sales are hard to come by.
Yeah.
Like it may be a 10% off. Or like a 15% off. No. With PG20, it gets you 20% off. We highly encourage you to get your opening day gear. They've got collegiate wear, all the above. I was at TPC Sawgrass. It was incredible. Weather was perfect. And we know there was some weather here in Alabama, and it got a little dicey there. So if you were affected by those storms, we are keeping you in our thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely.
This time of year, you never really know what can happen, especially in the state of Alabama, which I'm learning as I am a Georgia girl.
There you go.
So that is going to take us into our NL East preview. I'm excited about this. So we're going to divide this up. And we were talking about this, guys. The energy was, okay, we want to have a fun, light show because until really the season starts over the next, couple of weeks, there's not much new happening, right? Spencer Strider was the big story for us Braves fans. And so I'm talking to Ush and I'm thinking, okay, how do we make this a little more fun? Ush's first thought is, let's pick out a player on each of these teams that we prematurely are going to dislike. And so I'm pondering this.
Hatred.
Hatred was the word
used. Let the hatred run through you, as the emperor. What did the emperor say? Tyler, what did the emperor say? Something along the lines of embrace the hate. Something like that.
I think it's let the hate flow through you.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Let the hate flow through you.
This is our producer, Tyler.
It is. Lionel Johns producing the show today.
Yeah.
And coming in clutch with Emperor Palpatine
quotes. Of course. So all that to say, I'm thinking about this. And as you guys may know, I do want a future career in the sports industry, specifically baseball.
Yeah.
And I'm having these thoughts of, if I were to have on camera me saying my visceral hatred for a player, that may not bode well for me.
True.
That could get clipped.
I think you should play this one pretty diplomatic, but I think you can do that.
So this is what I did instead. I am calling this Ush's antics.
Ush's antics.
Going forward.
I have my own antics.
So I will be providing some commentary, but I'm going to let you take the reins because as we all know in this world, some sideline reporters can get into a bit of a sticky situation.
Correct.
When certain old tweets are brought up. There was a Brave sideline reporter, if you remember this, I think it was last year, and there was a tweet that came out of her disdain for the chop.
Yes.
Didn't bode well for them. So we're going to enter the Ush's antics portion of this amidst our NL East preview, and we're going to kick things off with the Mets. So I've got the Mets here, and I want to give a quick refresher on where we kind of ended with them. It was an almost but not yet kind of October run. Yeah. Historical.
And I think the most talk going into 2025 in the NL East would be about the Mets.
Yes,
agreed. Now, there's a lot of talk about the Braves and a lot of talk about the Phillies, but the Mets, I think, have had the most talk and have had the most attention.
Yeah.
And what you and I feel has the potential to be, and I say potential, strong potential to be the best division in baseball.
Yeah, I would agree on all fronts with that. And so, but the thing with the Mets, guys, if you remember, the pitching was what fell apart down the stretch. It wasn't great. And in the offseason, they haven't taken very many steps to alleviate that. Now, they did basically give Juan Soto a blank check. I think the strength here with the Mets is their lineup. It is stacked from top to bottom, but you mentioned those expectations. There's a lot on the Mets because they're spending a lot of money. So
expectations up,
yeah.
Payroll up, always up. You can't fault this current ownership group of not going all in. They are trying everything they can to win.
Yeah. And so I think we saw glimpses of that last season, and it obviously did not end the way they wanted. There was that, mid-season meeting, if you guys remember, that kind of was the catalyst for them to turn things around. And so I'm really intrigued about the Mets for a few reasons, but it really starts with, this lineup, you've got guys like Juan Soto, Lindor, Alonso. They have to deliver.
Yeah.
They cannot be good. They have to be, upper echelon caliber for this all to work, which is arguably in the best division. in baseball. And so I think that one thing I'm looking at, though, is the pitching. And I think that is going to be a pretty significant weakness considering some injuries that are barring them there as well.
Hate's such a strong word, E.G.
It
It's
is.
just such a dirty word. I don't hate anyone on this earth, but I strongly dislike Juan Soto. And if, to your point, if Juan Soto does not produce, Juan Soto is not going to get a pretty reception.
No.
In New York, in Flushing. Now, it ain't Philadelphia, but it's up there. And so there's a lot of pressure on that team, and particularly on Juan Soto.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the Phillies. Tell me what you know.
So the Phillies opened, again, they have not gotten as much attention as the Mets have gotten, but you got to remember the success of this team last year. They opened camp with 23 of their 26 spots locked up.
Wow.
So look at these names as I run through, going from catcher in the infield into the outfield, and see how many of these names that resonate, that sound familiar to you. JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, Alec Boehm, Nick Castellanos, Max Kepler, Brandon Marsh, Kyle Schwarber at DH, and then this pitching staff. Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, Zach Wheeler. That is the makings of a World Series champion team that I just reeled off.
Yeah.
They did not make a lot of changes because they didn't have to make a lot of changes. We saw improvement from their bullpen last year. I think that carries over. I think the Phillies are going to be right there in it when the season is over.
Yeah.
And the regular season is ending, and you and I are talking about these things in October. I think the Phillies will be one of those teams with a top 5 record in Major League Baseball. Now, just like anyone else, injuries, as the Braves fans know, can derail certain things. I think there's enough depth and talent there that will keep them at least competitive. But if they stay relatively healthy, that is going to be one of the top 5 teams in baseball.
Yeah, keyword healthy, of course. But I do think what is so intriguing about the Phillies is I feel like they are the most sound team right now when it comes to that foundation of guys that you just listed off. And we have heard that their clubhouse culture is incredible.
Yeah.
And we obviously are partial to the Braves, and we consider it to be the best in baseball. But again, friend of the show, Jake Peavy, he shared with us about a year ago that the Phillies are doing something right. So you combine those two things, I see big things for the Phillies this season.
It's a winning culture in Philadelphia as far as just the organization itself, and
city,
then the talent on the team speaks for itself. I'm going to go a little different here as far as the strong dislike, Lucia's antics. First off, we have a Phillies correspondent on the Pennant Grace, my good friend Travis Millsaps.
Yes, we do.
And my strong dislike comes to the city of Philadelphia because they're so
the entire city
mean. That's really uncalled for, Philly. This is the city that boos Santa Claus. This is the city that will boo anyone. They are rough and tumble and mean, and you know,
just the whole city.
Trav's a good Southern guy, but he married a girl from up in that area. They don't take a lot of, nothing from nobody. I'll tell you that right now. Tough customers in Philadelphia.
Have you been to a game in Philly?
Have not. Want to. Park looks great on TV.
It does.
Obviously, from Trav tells me he's been to many, very good experience there. So it's very high on my list. I'm built for show, not go.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty delicate. I don't want to get, a beer poured down my neck or punched. This face is my livelihood.
It is.
And so I don't want to get hit.
We have to protect that. And I've never been to Philadelphia at all, actually.
Yeah.
Never
so
been.
Big Rocky guy could see the statue and run the steps.
Yeah.
All the U.S. history there, which I would love.
That would be cool.
And then tremendous sports town, And then I'd want to go see the ECW, the old ECW arena, of course, as well. So that's the Phillies.
Okay. And the city of Philadelphia makes a list.
You're on the list.
Going on to the next team that is kind of a bless your heart moment if you're from the South.
Yeah.
The Marlins.
The team that it feels like, for whatever reason, the Atlanta Braves play every 4 out of 5 games.
It really does.
It's like, well, you play all the teams in your division equally. I'm like, no, you don't, because you play the Marlins about 70% of the time.
It feels like we are playing the Marlins often. They had 100 losses last season, and it just
coming off a good year.
Right.
The previous
2023.
year.
It was a historic run. It was incredible. And then they cleaned house.
Yeah.
And now it's a bit of a rebuilding year.
Yeah, so I assume we're in full rebuild.
Yes.
And we'll get into a little bit this with Washington, but to do a proper rebuild, and the best example I can think of, and talking about strong dislike and villains, is the Houston Astros. So the Houston Astros were very upfront and said, stick with us, Astros fans. We're going to do this thing the right way. We are going to burn this thing down so we can build it up.
Yeah.
Tremendous rebuild, and it resulted in what, right? Not only a championship, but just being a perennial playoff team, of which they still are. Very successful rebuild. Where is Miami in that? To me, they feel like a team that lacks identity, because when you do play them often, you start looking and you're watching these games, you're like, there's a lot of young talent on this team.
Yes, and it's a constant, it feels like a rotation, and I think the identity piece is what the Marlins are missing going forward, because in this rebuilding phase, you have to have someone that comes in and sets the tone.
Yeah.
And I feel like, the staff that they have put together when it comes to the front office, that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And so, at worst, the Marlins could be the worst team in baseball this season.
I
say.
think that they will be one of those in contention for it. No Jazz Chisholm, he's gone, so you look up in the lineup and you say, who are you going to strongly dislike there? And then at first, my first thought is, well, of course, Jose Urena,
right.
the whole Ronnie, saga where Ronnie kept getting plunked, and they're having all these press conferences, and it's this big, huge thing. Jose Urena doesn't pitch for the Marlins anymore. And I was like, well, I bet that Pablo Lopez does, and he plunked Ronnie on that first pitch.
Yep.
He's not there. It's hard to strongly dislike people that you don't know. They've been kicked enough. We're going to give them a pass today.
Okay, that's very kind of you, Ush.
I'm magnanimous.
Ush's antics. That's a good one.
It's an antic right there.
All right, let's round us out, Ush.
So keeping up. So, notice E.G. and I kind of split that. We each had a really good team, and we each had a not-so-good team. So finishing fourth in the division last year was the Washington Nationals. They were 71-91 last year. The question for them is where are you at in the rebuild? Because you have some in the organization saying rebuild's over. We have our team. We've got a bunch of young guys. We have the guys that we think are going to be, guys that are going to be here for a while. And others saying, I don't know if it's quite over yet. And you better know in this division, and because you're going against the Mets and the Braves and the Phillies. So we'll see if they. I think anything from them, if you can see maybe a 10-game swing for them, an improvement, then they would probably feel fairly encouraged.
Yeah, confident.
So you look at. Who do you look at? You read through the list. Second baseman Luis Garcia, who was Luis Garcia Jr., who was a Silver Slugger finalist last year. Center fielder Jacob Young, Gold Glove finalist last year. Again, there's just not going to be those big names that pop out on that. They do have Michael Soroka.
They do. We know him.
Oh, I know him, Mike Soroka. No.
Michael.
I
always wonder when they do
welcome to the
that.
Pennant Grace with your host, Emily Grace McWhorter and Joshua Sisk.
I always wonder what inspires those changes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we'll ask him.
This is an easy one when you think of, well, who is going to get the Ush's Antics Strong Dislike and the Washington Nationals? He was just in this room. It is famed Nationals fan Ryan Allen Brown from Sykes, Alabama. Huge Nats fan.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense.
Who amazingly knows nothing about the team.
Yeah, isn't he going to D.C. next week?
I believe that's correct.
Is he going to?
I don't think he'll have anything to do with the Washington Nationals at all.
It is unique. It's a unique fandom.
And in that man cave, the famed Ryan Allen Brown man cave, there's the Washington Nationals art.
Yeah. When me and Hallie watch Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's hanging on the wall, and the the 2019 World Series championship.
I mean,
things
it's
like that.
curated. It's curated. It's not random.
Ryan, who's your favorite current national?
Yeah.
Not there.
I like
He
it.
gets it today.
To round out today's show, I tasked Ush with coming up with his best Braves uniform. I have mine. He has his. We don't know what we picked. And I'm intrigued. I'm curious if we're going to match up on this.
This is very difficult. First off, anyone that's been watching this show for a while, and if you're on podcast listening to this show, and by the way, another plug for that.
Yes.
On Apple and Spotify, where you get your podcast, the Pennant Grace. Make sure that you subscribe. You know that we prioritize fashion on this show. It's
We
a
simply
big deal.
Yep.
Roback are a sponsor, so we're big on fashion, and we love talking uniforms. We've talked uniforms a lot on this show.
We have.
This was difficult. So I have what my pick. I was going to send it to Scott Forrester. I changed it 5 times.
Changed it 5 times. Okay, I knew mine.
5 times.
I knew mine.
Good.
And can we go ahead and get that queued up for us?
Yeah. We can go with yours first if you want to.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a history. Remember, the Braves are the longest continually running franchise in American sports.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of different uniforms. You're going back to Boston, you're going to Milwaukee, and then in Atlanta since 1966. There's been a lot of different versions of the Atlanta Braves uniform.
So I went with the 1982 Baby Blues.
Wow.
I love this uniform.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the colors. I love the classic scripts. I love the hats. I love everything about what we have going on here. And I wish we would do more with the baby blue colorway.
This was in my top 3.
Okay, good.
And had that hat as a kid. Did not go with this one, which I'm glad because a little variety on the show. Everything you said, I agree with. First off, I love this was a trend in this era to have, the V-neck, no buttons.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. I love the two-tone blue.
It looks so
in
good.
With the powder blue
The
is the
piping
main.
on the
it's great.
sleeves,
It's
it's so
outstanding.
good.
You got the classic A there, the Atlanta across the chest, placement of the numbers. If they use this for all times, I would have no complaints.
I love it. Now, I love the classic uniform, don't get me wrong.
Right.
And part of me, thought about it, just going the classic, but this one right here, to me, you can't beat it.
I thought long and hard about this baby blue. I thought long and hard about the 1966 when they came to Atlanta, that initial uniform. I thought long and hard about the ones that came right after that, which were similar but had the pinstripes.
Yeah, the pinstripes
So I thought that
are
was a
great.
really good look. And then I was almost about to pull the trigger on the mid-70s with the feather logo that I love so much. But ultimately, because take a look at me. You think there's a little boredom going on here, that there's a little blandness? You're right. A good night for me is a night I go to bed at 8:45. I went with the current Atlanta Braves home white.
It's so good.
And this has basically been their uniform since 1987. Now, there's been minor variations through that time, but by and large, this has been the uniform. It looks like the Milwaukee Braves. It looks like similar to what you saw even in Boston. So it is traditional, and it is the most long-running, by far, uniform that they've had. Again, 1987
So good.
season. Spring of 1987, where I was in second grade, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And the Braves have been using that since. You got the Navy hat with the red bill,
So
red,
good.
white, and blue. And you think, well, other teams have done that, and they've been around longer. I just said it's the longest continually running franchise in American sports. It's America, it's the Braves, and that's my pick, and I feel good about it. But boy, howdy, do I like those powder blues.
Let us know what your favorite and the best Braves uniform is. That is going to do it for us on today's episode. Quick programming note, we are not going to be live on Thursday.
What's going on Thursday?
We don't want to compete with the NCAA tournament. We do not want to do that at all.
Why put you in that
Basketball.
position,
Nope.
PG family?
We're not going to do it. So with that being said, listen to us on podcasts. Follow us on social media. Use code PG20. Do you have any last-minute thoughts, Sisk?
We may need to check in during this weekend from social media with a little bracketology.
Yes. Yeah, I need to do my bracket.
Maybe see how our brackets are going, and maybe let people know how our
I think we should do that.
next round fantasy
We're in a league
teams
together.
are going. That's right.
So we have a lot of competition here over the next couple of weeks. So with that being said, make sure you follow us at the Pennant Grace. We'd love to have you, and we will see you guys next Tuesday at 12:15.